So we're here with John Phillips, editor of the Italian Insider. John, thank you very much for being with us.
It's a pleasure.
So John, tell me, here in Rome, they have the Food and Agricultural Organization. I know you guys have been doing some investigations of this organization. What is some of the scandals and information that you've found?
General nepotism and corruption rife throughout the organization. This has been going on for the past 50 years, in fact. Western governments have periodically stopped funding to the FAO, but a lot of critics believe that it's impossible to reform the organization, that in the end it would have to be abolished. It would be the only way to reform it effectively, because there's such interior opposition to any outside interference to prevent the, especially nepotism, jobs for the boys, and this has become extremely obvious under the Director General at the moment, José Graziano da Silva, a Brazilian former Marxist minister who's in charge until next August.
Yeah, so on Graziano, I know one of the big scandals you guys kind of uncovered and focused on was him trying to give diplomatic immunity to one of his maybe comrades back from Latin America. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you found?
Well, that's right. Yes, that was one of the most intriguing things we discovered, was that he appointed Nadine Heredia, the former Peruvian First Lady, to be the head of the FAO liaison office in Geneva with the UN headquarters there, even though she was under investigation for laundering hundreds of millions of dollars of money that was sent from Brazil to finance her husband's presidential campaign in Peru. And after we reported the story, there was an outcry, and she was eventually suspended from the job, but she and her husband subsequently spent about 10 months in preventive detention in prison in Peru, partly because evidently the investigators there believed that the FAO appointment was part of an attempt to skip out of Peru and use diplomatic immunity to avoid standing trial.
Wow, what a story. And so some of these scandals that you've broken have gotten the attention of Graziano and the FAO, and they've given you some trouble. Would you tell us a little bit about what you're going through?
Yes, we've had what you might call judicial harassment by Mr. Graziano and his cronies. Under the UN Charter, press freedom is supposedly guaranteed, but he doesn't seem to care about that. And also, UN agencies like the FAO benefit from diplomatic immunity, whereby they don't pay taxes, they don't pay parking fines and various other things in the host countries, which normally means that they wouldn't use a local jurisdiction to try and prosecute anybody or sue them. But in this case, he's suing us, Mr. Graziano, and 4 of his senior executives are suing me personally as editor of the newspaper for a series of articles that he says, suing us in Italian courts for articles that he claims tarnish the image of the FAO, he's suing as legal representative of the FAO, and the other 4 senior executives are suing in a personal capacity and demanding hundreds of thousands of euros in civil damages, which could easily bankrupt us and put us out of business. And that seems to be the main aim of the judicial harassment.
Yeah, actually, we've covered some similar stories in the New American with the WIPO organization in Geneva, and then there's some things going on with UNESCO. I wonder, what do you think the U.S. Congress or maybe the U.S. administration might be able to do to get a handle on this? As you said, it's not in accordance with the UN's charter and the supposed UN values. What could the U.S. government or Washington, D.C. do about things like this?
Well, there is a new American ambassador now just arriving to the UN agencies in Rome, and we would hope that he's going to use some of the leverage that the United States has with the FAO and the other UN agencies here to put an end to these sort of practices, because the US, of course, is the biggest contributor to the FAO by far, and something like 30% of the funds come from US taxpayers. So it's ironic that in his first years, at least, Mr. Graziano was very anti-American, sidelined US staff and pushed them out in favor of Latin Americans and Hispanic candidates. So the US wasn't really getting a very good deal for all the money that was invested in the FAO, one might argue. And plus, Graziano has also supported the leaders of Venezuela, given them medals for supposedly ending hunger and poverty there, when in fact everybody knows the opposite is the case. The country is going down the tube. So hopefully the new US ambassador to the UN agencies may be able to crack the whip a bit with Mr. Graziano, and also use US influence for a more reasonable successor to Mr. Graziano, because an election is coming up. His reign is the end of his reign is approaching, so hopefully there could be a sea change there if the US and the other Western governments take a little bit more of a tough line with the Graziano and his friends.
Excellent. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Phillips?
I'd just like to say thank you very much for the support from the New American and yourself and your readers, and I'm glad to hear that there's also interest in our case among US congressmen and women, which could be very helpful as well.